What do you call a guy lying on your doorstep? Matt. Today, I'm going to recap a 2022 action thriller film called Overdose. The movie is set in Spain and tells the story of a man named Eduardo. One day he was waiting for his friend Igor outside the prison. Today is the day of Igor's release from prison. Once Igor was out of prison, he greets him warmly and then proceeds to introduce him to his girlfriend, Vanessa. After they get to know each other, Eduardo takes him to a car, where some girls are waiting inside, ready to serve Igor. Then they drive their respective cars to go somewhere. They arrive at a big house owned by a high-profile mobster in the town. It turns out that Igor has worked there before as a mule. Their arrival was warmly welcomed by their friends, as Igor is a respected figure among the gangsters. Shortly afterwards, the leader of the drug dealer, Alfonso, welcomes them. He seems so happy by Igor's coming, and he then tells him to take time to rest at his home, since he already has many jobs for him to do later. Igor goes inside the house, and he meets Saïd there. Saïd lives in the house with his wife, who is a serious drug addict. She couldn't go her days without the drugs. Igor then goes to his room to take a rest, and is ready to start his new day outside the prison. He starts to place a bug under the sink. This is a huge revelation. It turns out Igor became a spy since he was in jail. He is working with the police to catch the mafias. The movie set then switched to France. A police commander named Richard is on his way to the hospital to check an autopsy report of the death of an unknown guy. A hospital staff told him that the killer was so violent, he made the unknown guy's face severely injured, so it was so hard to identify him. Richard then tells the hospital staff that he is still investigating this case. We're back to Spain again. Eduardo's men are on their way of transporting a huge amount of drugs. A bunch of thugs is carrying the drugs by a boat to a coastline. Then they will hand it over to Eduardo's men. Interestingly, they carried out drug delivery transactions on the beach, which was crowded with visitors, but they didn't care about it at all. The most important is they did the mission successfully. They leave the beach right away after they get all the drugs. We move to another scene. Here we meet Sara, a Spanish woman police officer. She is investigating a traffic accident case, which is also being suspected as a homicide case. She works together with her teammate named Bouab. Her boss then tells her that the prime suspect of this case has not been found yet. Later in the evening, Sara and Bouab are having a conversation while drinking. She tells him about the spy who has just been released from the prison named Igor. She tells him that she has been working with Igor since he was in prison. She assigns him to be a spy in order to capture the drug dealer boss and his men. Bouab then praises her, and he says that he will fully support her in capturing those mafias. The next day, Eduardo and Igor go to a ranch to meet Alfonso, the mafia leader, there. Apart from being the head of the mafia, Alfonso also works as a rancher. Alfonso tells Igor that he has big work for him to do. He tells Igor and Eduardo and some other members will deliver an enormous amount of drugs to a mafia in France, and Igor gladly accepts the work. They leave the ranch once they finish the discussion about their plan. We're back to Igor's room. He checks the bug he planted the other day, then he takes a SIM card that he hid there before. Then he goes to Saïd's room to make a phone call using Saïd's phone secretly. He sends a message to Sara to notify her that tomorrow he is going to deliver drugs to France. Once Sara got his message, she then proceeded to tell her boss about the plan. Her boss then tells her to alert all her teammates to prepare the ambush. We're back to France again. Richard and his team are still investigating the last case of the murderer of an unknown guy. They haven't found the suspect yet. Later in the evening, we're back to Spain to Sara, who is on her way to another police division to ask their backup for the ambush they will do the next day. This division is led by a guy named Molins. They are discussing their plan and their respective task for this big raid. We're back to France again to meet Bruno. He is the head of a mobster in France. Bruno and his friends are having dinner together in a restaurant while talking about raunchy things. Their conversation is making other guests uncomfortable, so one of the guests asks him to tone their voice down, but Bruno couldn't accept to be treated that way. He comes over to that guy, then attacks him. He tells the man not to mess up with him. Afterwards, Bruno and his friends left the restaurant. The next day, Igor plants a bug in one of the cars that will join the drug shipment. The bug then will send the sign to notify Sara and her team that they are about to go to the destination. Before leaving the house, Eduardo asks all of his friends to remain alert and stay in the group during their trip to the designated location, and he warns them that no one can leave the group without his permission, knowing that this is the biggest drug shipment ever in their business. Once they are ready to leave, Saïd's wife arrives and joins him. For this shipment, Igor and one other member are riding the bike, while other members are driving their cars and following them behind. We're back to France to meet Richard and some other police who are still investigating the same case. But this time, they go to an apartment complex, trying to find other clues from the people who live around the complex that might lead to the suspect. They meet an old lady who lives there, and apparently this old lady has a hobby of monitoring people who live around her apartment. She then shows some photos complete with its details to a cop who came to her house, and she also tells her that she uses her camera to monitor the people who she found were doing something suspicious. The old lady then tells the cops that she knew a mafia who lived in this apartment complex named Christ. The scene switches to Eduardo, who is calling Christ while driving his car to ship the drugs. He tells him that he and his team will soon arrive in France to deliver the drugs to Bruno. Christ then says that he is ready to help him anytime to complete the job. The scene then switches to Saïd and his wife inside the car. While they are on their way to ship the drug, his wife is taking another drug. He tells her that he is sick of her addiction and asks her to stop, but she just ignores him. A moment later, her wife vomits inside the car, then goes unconscious. Saïd is so mad at her, then tries to wake her up, but she doesn't move at all. Saïd then became anxious. At the same time, Eduardo sends a message to all his team, telling them to stay within the group because they are about to cross the Spain and France border. We are back to Saïd, who is still trying to wake up his wife, but to no avail. Then he decides to leave the group and pulls over his car. He was so worried about her, and he kept trying to wake her up. While he was trying to wake her up, a couple of Spanish cops came and asked him what was happening. Saïd answers the police question nervously. Upon seeing his suspicious behavior, the cops are asking him to put his hands up. Instead of doing what the police tell him to, he opens fire. Eduardo comes to the scene a moment later, and he shoots the police right away. After he took all the police down, Eduardo is coming close to Saïd while scolding him for leaving the group. Saïd then tells him that he has to leave the group to help his wife who was unconscious from an overdose. But unexpectedly, his wife was killed by the gunfire that occurred earlier. Eduardo then orders him to leave his wife's corpse there and tells him to hurry up and leave the place. Afterwards, he makes a call to the team and tells them that they need to take another route because it was too late to cross the border. We switch to Sara and her teams who are waiting for the mafia group, but they have to leave the place because of the news of a gunfight that has happened near the border. She and her team then go to the crime scene right away to evacuate the victims. When they arrived at the crime scenes, they knew that the mafia group they were dealing with was not an ordinary one, but the cruelest one, by seeing the way they killed the police savagely. The group of the mafia that is led by Eduardo has arrived in France, and they decided to take a little break for a while at the nearest village. Eduardo then asked an old man he just met to let him and his men stay the night at his house. Initially, the old man was hesitant to let him into his house, but Eduardo forced him. Then the old man had to let him and his men stay at his house because he felt that his family and his son's safety was at risk. He had no choice but to let them stay the night. In the evening, they were treated to dinner by the old man just like a guest. While having the dinner, Eduardo tells the old man's son to not be afraid of them, and he gives him some advice that he should become a tough man when he grows up. The boy just nodded his head to everything Eduardo told him. Shortly afterwards, we see that the old man is going outside to check Eduardo and his men's cars secretly. He saw many bullet marks on their cars, so he slightly understood that they all are criminals. Suddenly, Eduardo comes and he finds out what the old man just did, and then he kills him. After he had killed the old man, he went back to the house and told Igor to bring the old man's wife and son outside the house. He tells Igor to kill them too, to eliminate any witness of his crime. Igor brought the old man's wife and son outside the house, while Eduardo and Vanessa went upstairs to spend the night, making love together. The making love scene is so explicit, so for the sake of our innocence, I am sorry that I have to omit it from this video. We switch back to France to Richard, who just got the information from his teammate that they have a new assignment. They have to capture a group of mafia members from Spain who are about to make a drug transaction within their country. Richard then tells his team members to cooperate with the Spanish police force to raid the mafias during the transaction. They soon have a meeting with the Spanish police force, led by Sara, that evening. While on their way to the police station, Sara describes all the crimes that mafia groups had committed all this time to Richard. The French and Spanish police forces are having a meeting to arrange a strategy for the ambush. Each of them has assigned each task. After their meeting is over, Richard calls his only daughter to say that he loves her so much and he'll be home soon. Sara then joins him later and they chat for a while. The next day, the mafia group is resuming their trip, and before leaving the village, Saïd says that he is going to drive the old man's car, since his car is full of bullet marks, and elsewhere Bruno is ready to pick up the drugs at the designated location somewhere. It goes the same with Christ, who also is ready to go somewhere to help Eduardo with the drug deal. When Christ goes inside his car, the old lady who lives at the same apartment complex saw him from the window of her house. Eduardo, Igor, and other team members made a little stop to take a break, and Igor took advantage of the break time to call Sara, telling her that they were close to the designated area and they are about to arrive there soon. After getting the location info from Igor, Sara immediately told her team to get ready. All the police officers give their full force for this mission to be successful so all the mafias could be arrested. Long story short, the police have arrived at the designated location, precisely an historical tourist attraction in France. They have been waiting for the mafia's arrival for quite a long time. After the long wait, one by one the mafia's cars entered the location. All the mafias have arrived at the designated location, and they will proceed with the drug transaction. But before that, a bus full of students arrives at the site for a tour. It turns out it was a part of their plan to cover this transaction and to avoid the cops, so this drug transaction would run smoothly as they planned it before. The process of transferring drugs from Eduardo to Bruno has been successful, and they were ready to leave the site. All the cops thought it was the right time to ambush them. When the cops are conducting the raid, interestingly, no one from the mafia's side puts up any fight. They stay calm and surrender themselves. However, 2 cars and 2 bikes, including Igor's, managed to escape from the ambush, and the cops chased them right away. It was such a long chase, but finally the police could take down a car. Meanwhile, the other car that Saïd was driving and Igor, who was riding the bike, still managed to escape from the cops. The cops then took all the mafias to the police station. The scene then switches to Igor, Saïd, and some other mafia members who are pulling up somewhere after they had managed to escape from the police's chase. They have an argument and blame each other for their mission has failed, and many of their friends are arrested. While they are still blaming each other, Saïd is answering the call from Christ. The latter tells him that there is a spy among them. One of them betrayed them. That is why the cops could find out the location of their drug transaction. After hearing what Christ said, Saïd then told Igor about the spy, and then he aimed his gun at him. But when he pulled the trigger, it was not Igor who he was trying to kill, but someone else. Igor looked relieved that he still managed to cover his betrayal. We're back to Sara, who is interrogating Eduardo at the police station. Sara asks him who his boss is, but instead of answering her question, he asks Sara to spend the night with him. Molins, who was there, then proceeded to hit him for what he said to Sara. Elsewhere, Vanessa is asking for a cigarette when she sees Richard walking in front of her cell. Not only for a cigarette, she also offers herself to him, asking him to sleep with her inside the cell. But Richard politely refuses her invite, since he finds that she is not his type. After she had interrogated Eduardo, Sara then met Bruno. Bruno threatened her by saying that she would regret everything she had done to him. But Sara and the other cops weren't afraid of him at all. Bruno then called her a bitch. She didn't deserve to be a cop. Upon hearing what Bruno said to her, Richard felt so mad, then landed his fist to Bruno. He was furious when Bruno insults Sara. Sara and Richard went outside to take a little pause after the incident they had earlier with the Mafia's members. Sara thanked him for what he did for her, and later on they were talking to each other about their personal life. Sara then knows that Richard is a widower and he has a daughter. On the other side, Richard finds out that Sara stays single because she is busy with her work as a cop. It looks like both of them are attracted to each other. Shortly afterward, Sara received a call from her partner, informing her that they had found out the address of the drug boss, Alfonso. The cops then proceed to ambush the house, and they make it to take all Alfonso's men down. A couple cops finally catch Alfonso inside the house. The latter is pretending to surrender when those two cops find him, but then he shoots them immediately. All Alfonso's minions have died, and the situation is under control for a while, but the cops still can't find where Alfonso is. It turns out, Alfonso is covering himself as a cop. He goes outside the house while wearing a police uniform. But his cover was blown up, so the cops caught him. The cops tell him to surrender, but he still tried to resist, so the cops had to shoot him. He died finally. We move to the next scene, where the joint police from France and Spain are on their way to transfer all the members of the Mafia to the high-security prison, but unexpectedly, an accident is happening on the highway, so they are stuck at the traffic jam. Molins then comes to tell Sara that they have to wait until the evacuation is done, since there is no alternative way to the prison. While they are waiting inside the car, Vanessa asks Bouab to let her go outside for a while to pee, but Bouab says no and tells her to hold it. Vanessa then pees inside the car. It turned out it was a code for the Mafia members to start the attack against the cops. The members of the Mafia managed to attack the cops. They shot a couple of cops who were inside the car. In the end, Eduardo successfully managed to escape from the cops, but Vanessa and several cops died by the gunshots. We move on to the next scene. A lawyer just got out of his car, then he met Sara. He told her that she made a big mistake by arresting a person like Bruno, but she then confronted him, telling him that she wasn't afraid of him at all. Inside the police station, a key witness of Eduardo and his men's crimes just came. It turns out that the key witnesses are the old man's wife and son that had been killed by Eduardo in the previous scene. In the other place, Eduardo was having his dinner while watching the news on the television, and he saw a glimpse of the old man's wife and son on the news. He then realized that Igor didn't kill them and he had betrayed him. He was so mad by the truth that Igor became a spy. Shortly afterward, he went somewhere to meet Christ and asked his help to provide him a place to hide. He was picked up by Christ's man, and they went right away to Christ's home. Knowing that Eduardo is in Christ's home, Saïd and Igor then decide to meet him and hide themselves at Christ's home too. When they arrived, Eduardo greeted them with a smile, but suddenly his smile turned into anger. He was so upset by Igor's betrayal, and then he asked some men to get him captured and locked him at the back of the house. He was going to kill Saïd too, for messing up their plan because of what his late wife did. The scene then switches to Richard and Sara. Richard walks Sara home, and they have a little talk outside her house. Sara then asks him if he would like to come over to her house, and he says yes to her invitation by kissing her. They went inside Sara's house, and they spent the night together making love to each other. Elsewhere, a couple of cops are doing a patrol and find the suspected bikes and cars belonging to the Mafia members. They made a report of their discovery to Richard, who was spending the night at Sara's house. Richard then tells Sara that he needs to go. Back at Christ's home, where Eduardo is torturing Igor for his betrayal. He asks him why he did this to him, and Igor tells him that he is tired of the bad things he did all this time. He then kills him without even saying a word. Not long after that, he sees the cops coming fully armed and are outside the house. The cops ambush him and his men, and another intense, gobsmacked gunfight between the cops and the bad guys is happening. The cops managed to break into the house, and their Sara found Igor inside the cell, lifeless. She felt so devastated by Igor's death. The bad guys were so overwhelmed by the police's attack, they bombarded them insistently. In the end, they managed to capture Eduardo. But Eduardo is such a douchebag. After the police handcuffed him, he still managed to insult Sara by telling her a stupid cop. Sara was provoked by his words. She aims her gun at him, ready to kill him, but one of her teammates is trying to stop her. He then says, let him do it in her stead. A moment later, the cops are evacuating all the victims who died in the shooting that happened earlier. A new day has come. We see Sara walking in the alley, bringing a bucket of flowers to meet Richard. But she stops her steps when she sees him outside with his daughter and also his ex-wife. She feels bittersweet inside her heart. She is sad that she can't be with him, but at the same time she feels happy for him, for reuniting with his family. If you enjoyed this video, don't be shy to hit the like button, and if you disliked it, hit the dislike button twice, just to be sure. It would be best if you watched the whole movie. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe for more videos like this.